Throughout the Potter League's history, we've really looked at what animals and people need in our community and not only help them in the near term, but thought about the long term. Obviously, the most critical moment in the organization's history is 95 years ago when 3 prominent women in Newport came together and decided that we needed to do something for animals on the island. There was really nothing before that. So when they came together and really in a short period of time, they were able to build Newport's first animal shelter down on Harrington Street and cared for all sorts of animals. But in the early 70s, the state passed a new law that regulated boarding kennels and similar facilities. And the state veterinarian said our facility did not comply with those new regulations, and we were going to have to make some changes or they were not going to license us.
It's just it was a place to house the animal until they found a home. But it wasn't, you could tell they just weren't happy. I mean, who's going to be happy there? It was loud. It just wasn't inviting. And it wasn't inviting for the clientele either that were coming in, It didn't, as much as it was inviting as it could be by the staff, it just was not. You walk in the facility today and it's like you feel like you'd hang out there and read a book if you wanted to. You wouldn't want to do that. And it was so much smaller.
So the board at the time had the vision to see that they wanted to do something bigger, and that group came together and negotiated with the airport authority to allow us to use the piece of property we're on now.
And we were all quite enthused about the fact that if we were going to build a new shelter, and it was going to be a regional shelter, and it would cover all of Aquidneck Island, and we'd have the 3 communities involved with it. And that took some work, but there was actually, I have to say, a lot of support from the councils, all 3 councils, to do something regionally because, as you know, otherwise each city and town is obligated to have an animal shelter of some sort.
What's happened here in the last 50 years, to me, is incredible. This is much better where it's located on the island. It's much more convenient to everybody. It's out of the downtown Newport traffic. And to have 3 small population communities on the island that we do, we're not a big population, to run an individual pound, they couldn't do it as efficiently and as effectively as what the Potter League's done.
When I first got here, and even when I was on the board of directors before I was hired to be the executive director, it was a lot of fundraising. It was a lot of focus on individual animals that came through the building, as it should be. However, we also expanded our mission to not just what happens to the dogs and cats, but what happens to that bonded family unit. And I think that's the biggest change. It's enriching lives. It's not just enriching lives of the animals, it's enriching lives of the people around the animals. And the realization that the animal is not just a pet, it's part of the family. And a lot of the programming centers now around how does that family member need to be supported.
In 2019, we acquired what was called the Rhode Island Community Spay and Neuter Clinic, now called the Potter League Spay and Neuter Clinic, the largest provider of spay and neuter services in the state. We'll do about 6,500 surgeries there this year, and incredibly important for us to maintain the direction that the state is headed in terms of making sure that we don't have a tremendous overpopulation of animals, that people have access to those vital surgeries, that those animals are also vaccinated, so it's health protection as well. And keeping that service available was incredibly important to the entire state. A little over a year later, we did the same at the Pets in Need Clinic in East Providence. Pets in Need Clinic is a full-service veterinary clinic that is focused on helping people who cannot afford veterinary care anywhere else. You probably would not walk in and know that many of the people there are paying 30 or 40% of what you would pay at a regular veterinary clinic. You can't see that, and part of what we really wanted to do there is make sure people get access to the care they need and retain their dignity and respect, and they weren't going to come and feel like they were going to some place that was less than anything else. throughout those 95 years, there have been tremendous struggles. There have been times where this organization has really been on the edge and gone through difficulty. But what's been consistent is there are people in this community who want to make sure that it continues and have put in tremendous time and effort to make sure that the Potter League is going to continue to be here. And what's incredible about 95 years is when you look back and think about how this place has changed. There was no bridge to get you here. There were horses in the street. And today we look at what the world is like, and it's incredible for anything to survive that long. And the only reason it has is because of the people who've been dedicated to service. And the service culture in this community is what has kept the organization alive. It doesn't just continue on its own.